So Bernie just tweeted out he's raised 100,000 donors already in 10 hours. I would assume he might end the day at around between $2 and $3 million raised. After 3.5 hours, he was already at $1 million. I think Kamala Harris raised $1 million in her entire day. And honestly, the corporate media, they don't view candidates as credible.
Yeah.
They don't view them credible based on what the polls say.
Exactly.
They don't view them credible as how many people show up at their rallies. They don't view them credible based on are they right on policy. All they care about is money, because our corporate media is part of the corrupt political system. It's two peas in a pod. So since Bernie is basically on a small dollar basis going to be outpacing every single declared candidate already, we'll see what happens. I have his communications director texted me back because I wanted an update on those fundraising numbers. So we'll see at the end of the day. They don't have an update right now, but we'll see at the end of the day what it comes out to. So obviously, CNN and I've heard the NPR now and Washington Post, this narrative of,
NPR?
It's going to be an uphill climb this time because there's so many candidates.
It's going to be an uphill climb because everyone has adopted his politics.
Right.
Like it's not a good. It's so weird because I think that would be. He's like the only person that they would say this to. Anyone else, they'll be like, you know what? He has a good chance to win because he's the person that pushed the Democratic Party left. Now they're saying, oh, you put your agenda. You got your agenda. Why are you here? Some people are gonna be like, well, we don't need you now. That's kind of what they're insinuating is that. Now that since you were so influential in pushing the Democratic Party more left, that why are you here? Like, what?
Yes.
Are you silly? I'm here because I want to implement. I know this is in my heart. You know what I mean? They're following the wave. That's it. I've been consistent.
And by the way, I don't have anything to confirm yet, but I am hearing from a few people. He might have a rally on Saturday to announce. Not confirmed, but I am hearing that from one or two people that I trust. I don't know where. Reports in the New York Post earlier this week said that he was going to try to do it at Brooklyn College, which I actually think is a great idea.
Who told me that? I talked to what's her name yesterday, and she said that too.
Oh yeah.
So I think
he was going to try to do it at Brooklyn College, which I actually think is good because I love you, Burlington, Vermont, but he needs a much less white backdrop this time around. And I think Brooklyn College, New York City is the most diverse city in the entire world.
That's the one beautiful thing about New York.
There's a lot of beautiful things about New York.
But that's because the energy. Because LA is diverse too, but everybody in LA acts the same. We kind of do things the same. But here you see the difference. You go to different communities, and everyone loves each other, but no one's assimilating, and it's a beautiful thing.
And I also don't want you to think that status quo. It is Bernie's announcements day, so we're focusing on him. I am talking to Tulsi Gabbard's campaign as well about potentially getting an interview with her because she deserves coverage. You see stories in the corporate media that don't even list her as a candidate.
That CNN didn't even offer her.
And before I get to the Trump video, I just want, for my own satisfaction, to show you the Daily Kos straw poll. CNN and the corporate media was literally using this a couple of weeks ago because Bernie was in last place. So now the straw poll is, I think Bernie's comfortably in first place. That would be 39%. It's on the, quote, progressive Daily Kos to Kamala Harris's 18%. So Bernie Sanders at 10,377 votes, most of which came today.
Why do they have her at the top?
I don't know, maybe. I don't know why they have her at the top when he's clearly.
Exactly.
So, yeah, Bernie's.
Look, what's this?
Yeah.
They're not going by last name.
So, Marcus, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Marcus Malutzis, the founder of Daily Kos, who hates Bernie and is a part of the he's not a Democrat crowd, and showed up recently at Nancy Pelosi's congressional office with like 100 roses, which was embarrassing.
You know what's so funny as well is that they're trying to the Democratic Party is trying to promote this group think, like almost like they're criticizing him for not really being a Democrat. Well, he's really not a Democrat.
No,
He's really-
they don't care that he's a Democrat. They care that he's not bought off and part of the corporate establishment. That's what it is. But I just find this fun because this is literally what Politico and other places was using weeks ago because he was in last place. Yeah, because he hadn't announced. And the Daily Kos is literally a right-wing Democrat website at this point.
That's so weird to me that he's like number 4.
So there's a lot to show you. I mean, we have a lot of updates, but I think one of the most telling things was our president's response to Bernie Sanders announcing.
Oh, Bernie Sanders is running, yeah, that's right. Personally, I think he missed his time, but I like Bernie because he is one person that, on trade, he sort of would agree on trade. I'm being very tough on trade. He was tough on trade. The problem is he doesn't know what to do about it. We're doing something very spectacular on trade, but I wish Bernie well. It'll be interesting to see how he does. I think what happened to Bernie maybe was not so nice. I think he was taken advantage of. He ran great 4 years ago, and he was not treated with respect by Clinton. And that was too bad. I thought what happened to Bernie Sanders 4 years ago was quite sad as it pertains to our country. So we'll see how he does. You got a lot of people running, but only one person's going to win.
Donald Trump, let's call it what it is. He's called him Crazy Bernie many times. He loves poking at Bernie Sanders, but it seems like that was a way more diplomatic answer than you will get from Donald Trump on just about
Very
anyone.
measured.
Could it be that he knows that a huge part of his voters like Bernie Sanders? Could it be that he knows that a lot of his voters actually voted for Bernie in the primary over Hillary Clinton, and then because Hillary Clinton was the nominee, ended up voting for him? Could it be that he knows that Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America, and he wants to stay as far away from bashing Bernie Sanders because he knows it will only incite Bernie's base, which is part of his base, and he knows, holy shit, in all the head-to-head polls, Bernie was crushing me.
Yeah. And Bernie is have you ever seen Bernie a little irritated? Bernie can go in when he want to go in. He try to be measured to, because he wants to, he don't want to really offend. But when you get Bernie and you get on his nerve, he gonna give it to you. He from Brooklyn, right?
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right, and I think Donald Trump, honestly, I'm not going to get into it right now, but based on what we're seeing, another report came out today that he was trying to get at the time, the interim Attorney General Whitaker to force a New York Southern District attorney to reinsert himself in the Michael Cohen trial because that attorney had recused himself. So Donald Trump, I don't think he understands what obstruction of justice is, but he's pretty dumb, and he's facing some legal problems.
So absent,
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, so that's that. But I want to also show you, again, by tonight, this is from Our Revolution, Nevada, by tonight, Bernie Sanders will have more than doubled individual donors and tripled in dollars what Kamala Harris brought in on day one. He will be the only candidate to exceed the 65,000 individual donors, well, he's already gotten 100,000, to qualify for the debates, and he will have done it in one single day. Now, let's see what Bernie's campaign is thinking as far as their strategy, the Politico article. So, when Bernie Sanders was mulling a 2020 campaign last year, he said he would likely pull the trigger if he thought he was the best candidate to defeat Trump. Now that's officially in the race. Well, skip over this part. I want to read this part. This month, Ben Tolchin, Sanders' pollster, circulated a memo about an online survey he conducted in late 2017 for progressives who are hoping to flip state legislative seats in West Virginia. The poll found that Sanders would beat Trump by 2 percentage points in the state, despite the fact that Trump won West Virginia 69-27, and that no Democratic presidential candidate has carried the state since 1996. To operatives in both parties, the notion that Sanders could defeat Trump in one of the president's strongholds strains credulity. But the Sanders team is convinced the Vermont senator's appeal to independent voters, the white working class, and people of color is underestimated and could pay dividends in unexpected places in a general election. They argue that his anti-establishment and populist economic message, as well as his many years of representing rural voters, makes him competitive in not only the Rust Belt states, where Hillary Clinton faltered, but also potentially in deep red states. They're not just talking about West Virginia. Some in Sanders' camp envision possibly making a play for Iowa, Ohio, and Indiana, as well as states such as Kansas, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Montana, 6 states that together have voted for the Democratic nominee just twice in the past half century. Quote, "It could just radically change the map," Tolchin told Politico. As Bernie has showed, as Trump has showed, I don't think we're in a binary, two-dimensional left-right paradigm anymore. Convincing the primary elected that he could defeat Trump in a general election looms as one of Sanders' biggest challenges in 2020. His rivals, as well as pundits from both parties, will likely paint him as an extremist who could never win. All right, so let's go back.
I got you. Just talk.
I don't really care what the pundits say. I certainly don't care what CNN says, because they all told me that Hillary Clinton was going to crush Donald Trump. They all told me that Donald Trump had no chance to even become a Republican nominee. So who cares? They're dead. So what's important here...
Tell them what's important.
Rob Quist, if you recall Rob Quist, he was a Bernie-crat running in Montana against the guy who eventually won that beat up the reporter, Greg Gianforte or Greg...
Oh, on a plane?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Rob Quist had shrunk the divide. Trump won Montana by 20 points. Only a few months after Trump was elected in that special election in Montana, the progressive Bernie-crat lost by 6 points. That was a 14-point swing in Montana. You have Iowa that has been hurt by Trump's trade war. The farmers have been hurt, and Iowa has a progressive pocket. Steve King defeated I think his name was J.D. Scholten, but not by as much as Steve King has beat other opponents for Iowa, his Iowa district. So Iowa has progressive populism in it. You look at North Dakota, South Dakota. Well, Bernie Sanders, I believe he won North Dakota, actually, in the Democratic primary. You have West Virginia. Bernie crushed Hillary Clinton in the primaries, and West Virginia is a very, very strong union state. And honestly, do you see a lot of plants opening where you are in West Virginia, like Donald Trump told you? What about in Ohio? No, because we were just there. Yeah. They're closing down, not reopening. So I think Bernie Sanders not only has a shot to make inroads in states that he lost to Hillary Clinton, like we talked about this morning, there is the fact of voter suppression. There is the fact of election fraud. There is the fact of the Democratic Party trying to rig it, which I explained this morning. Bernie Sanders' campaign is going to have to be a hell of a lot more vigilant against that, and they're going to have to be a hell of a lot more loud about that, rather than sitting there and being like, well, we don't want to be sore losers, so we're moving on to the next contest.
Don't be preoccupied with how somebody perceive you. You know your heart. You know what I just thought about right now, what we were talking about earlier, how they were saying, oh, well, you moved everything to the left, like, why are you in? Mm-hmm. Like, think about the hypocrisy in that when we think about Beto O'Rourke. Right? Mm-hmm. They say Beto O'Rourke should run for president, or he will, because of how he was so influential. Even though he lost, they were saying that a lot of progressives around the country was winning because of like his message. Because I think he shrunk the thing as well, right? Mm-hmm. He almost made it seem like Texas was a purple state because of how close the race was, and that his campaign in turn influenced a lot of other progressives that won. So maybe he has a good chance to be president, but Bernie Sanders should you did your job. Just sit to the side. Come on.
It would be like Michael Jordan in basketball being like, hey, he's ushered in this whole new revolution of players, and maybe he should retire because look at all these other great players that came. inspired by Michael.
That do exactly what he does. Think about this. You know how many people? Think about how many kids that were raised on Michael Jordan and that wanted to be Michael Jordan, and they came in, and guess what? Michael Jordan still dominated them because Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. Bernie
right.
Sanders is Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders. You know what his campaign slogan should be? Consistent. And they should have a montage of him from the time he was in Congress all the way to now, and just say consistent.